Hello, everyone. I'm Mike. And so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike DelPrete. I'm a real estate tech strategist and analyst based in the United States. I'm based in Colorado. And my friends at Otodom asked me to come and speak to you virtually today. I spend a lot of my time studying what's going on in real estate and real estate technology globally. So in the past, I worked at a very large property portal overseas in New Zealand as head of strategy. And now I'm based here in Colorado. I spend almost all my time doing this analysis and research and publications. I also teach a real estate technology course at the local university, the University of Colorado Boulder. So I am just in this space 24/7 thinking about what's going on. And what I want to talk to everyone about today is the change that's happening in the industry as a result of coronavirus. As the pandemic has spread from China and South Korea into Italy and Europe and here in the US, it's caused a number of changes across the industry. It's impacting real estate. It's impacting housing in a big, significant way. And I'm a data guy. I like to look at numbers. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So my goal here is, one, to talk about data, right? So with information, with data, I hope to paint a clear picture of what's happening, what the implications are, and the effect on the housing market. Secondly, I want to talk about kind of the insights or the takeaways or the implications of that data. What does it say? What should you do about it? What can you tell your customers, your clients about the market? What's going to happen, and what can you do? So that's the idea of everything I do and what I want to talk about today. So to begin with, I have some real slides, but I also have some fake slides. So this is my home office. I've been spending a lot of time at home, me and my family. This is where I do a lot of my work. So welcome into my home here. We've been doing a lot of arts and crafts lately with the kids. So I have a lot of paper and markers. So I thought I would start with this. This is a very simple illustration of the housing market. And if you think about this showing number of housing transactions, real estate transactions over time, this is what's happening. You know, everything's going along fine. And then the pandemic and associated lockdowns hit, and there's a decline. So what I'm interested in are three things, these three arrows. I want to understand what that decline is like. What does it look like? How far down does it go? How long does it take? Secondly is, how long does it last? How long does this dip last? And then lastly, what does the recovery look like, right? Does it bounce back immediately, or does it take a long time to get back up there? And the way that I'm going to do this is by looking at data. I'm going to look at data from around the world, and different countries are at different points on this curve. So when I'm speaking to you now, I'd say, the United States is kind of here. China's in the recovery phase. South Korea is in the recovery phase. Italy is right here. Italy's been in lockdown. Some other European markets like the UK and Netherlands, Germany, from my understanding, Poland as well, are in this decline phase where things are starting to go down, but we haven't yet hit the bottom, and we don't know what that looks like or how long that lasts. So this is the curve. This is what I'm so interested in all of my research and what I'm going to talk to you about today. So if we take another version of that curve and we kind of shade in this dip, what that is that's the overall drop in transaction volumes for the year, right? So given the down and the decline and the recovery, what does that total drop look like? Are we down? What % are we down in 2020 compared to 2019? And that's going to be different depending on any market you're in. But the goal here is to kind of look at some examples and through that data, talk about what's going on. So that's that. I'm going to switch over to some information, some data. I'm going to go through my slides now. So stay with me here. I am happy to make the presentation available. And if you have questions, ask. I know you can't ask live right now, but I'm more than happy to answer questions. All right. So when I'm thinking about data, I think about the funnel, kind of the traffic funnel, and four things. So at the top of the funnel is traffic. How many visitors are going to a real estate portal to look for real estate? The second is leads. Out of all of those visitors, how many of them turn into leads? How many of them fill out a form and express intent in a property? they want a tour, they have some questions, they want to talk to an agent. Whatever that lead form is, those are leads. So that denotes a higher intent. After that is new listings, right? So that's a new listing coming to market. So if that visitor turns into a lead and then they want to buy or sell a home, if they decide to list their home, that's a new listing. And then finally, that'll lead to number of transactions, right? Once a home is listed, it will transact. So what I'm most interested in, if you remember those graphs, is number of real estate transactions. But to get that takes time. It takes months from something to be listed to fully transacted. So I need to look at some of these lead indicators, go further up the funnel to see what's happening in this space, what's happening in the market, to give us an idea as to what might happen. So let's start with traffic. When we're thinking about the impact that this is going to have on portals around the world, we'll start at the top of the funnel with traffic. And I'm here with kind of the latest information, a bit of an update. If we look at the portals, what sort of visitor drop they've seen over, since this has kind of occurred on a week-to-week basis, you see quite a range, varying from kind of 20 to 40% here. So I've looked at a number of top portals around the world. C'est Loger in France down 40%, top Italian portal down 40%, in the UK Zillow down about, or in the UK Zoopla down about 30%, in the US Zillow down 30%, another US portal down 25%, Funda in the Netherlands down 25%, and Otodom close to that, down about 23%. I think the drop here is really related to where the portals and where the countries are in the scope of the pandemic and the associated lockdowns. So the first ones that are hit, the more severe hit, the bigger drop they will see. And you'll see that reflected in the first two, France and Italy. Were definitely kind of the first hit and very severe lockdowns that were put in place. Another US portal, which is anonymous, but it's not one of the big publicly listed companies. So this is not Zillow's, Realtor.com or Redfin, but another private portal showed me this data. So this looks at traffic over time, and this is kind of pretty consistent, right? Everything's normal, and then up until March is when that big drop occurs. So if you can see my cursor kind of right in here, traffic drops 20, 30% as soon as the pandemic hits and the associated lockdowns hit. So quite a significant drop there. If we go to Zoopla in the UK, same thing. So if you're looking at traffic, that would be demand. So that's that purple line. And again, going through the early part of March, everything's fine. But then mid-March, when the pandemic hits, it just drops, and it really drops off a cliff, down 40%. So that's, oh, I'm sorry, it would actually be interest. So the orange line, interest is down about 30%. And that's that traffic, quite significant. But what you'll notice is that it does kind of bounce back, right? If you look at that dotted line, the rolling average, it comes back. So when the pandemic hits and people are stuck inside, they stop browsing for real estate, right? It kind of makes sense. There's other more important things to focus on. But after they've been inside for kind of a week or two, traffic comes back. They're back looking on, and maybe looking at a real estate portal is a form of entertainment, just to see what's going on. People are bored, they're stuck inside. But what you notice with this graph is that purple line, that's demand, that's number of leads, that's dropped. And that's dropped significantly, and it doesn't bounce back. That's down 40%. And the latest data over the past week or two shows a continued decline in that. It's probably down 50, 60% at this point, which matches up with another number of other countries. So that brings us to leads, right? So the next topic down the funnel, you have traffic, and then you have leads. And that's somebody going to the website, not only browsing, but then filling out a form, expressing some sort of interest in the property. I have a question, I want to talk to an agent, I want to do a tour, any sort of next step, kind of demonstrating a high degree of intent that the consumer has in terms of interacting with that property. So again, looking at a couple different portals here, you see the drop in leads internationally anywhere from 28 to 40%. Zoopla in the UK, as we looked at, that was 40. It's probably actually higher. Like I mentioned, in Italy, it's not charted here, but that's also high double digits in that 40 to 50% range. And then you have Netherlands, US, a couple other US, 20, 30, 40%. I would expect that to kind of continue for these portals, at least in the first couple weeks. But then as soon as we're, if we think about that curve, as soon as we hit the bottom of the curve and things start to bottom out, I think it'll start coming back. People will find new ways to interact with the portals, new ways to interact with properties. They might do virtual tours. So it all kind of comes up. Begs the question, well, what is a lead now? If you're in a market with a lockdown, like Italy, and you can't go outside, you can't leave, you can't really visit a home, or you don't want people coming into your home if you're selling it, really, what is a lead? In the past, it used to be somebody with a high intent of wanting to purchase a home. Mainly just to purchase a home. That's usually the people that are filling out forms. Some people are also seller leads. They want to sell a home. Excuse me. But now, what is it? There's a lot of portals are enabling people to just ask questions, fill out a form, talk to an agent, conduct a virtual tour. So the definition of what a lead is changing. It's perhaps less serious. A person has less intent to want to transact immediately, but they're hungry for information. They want information and they want to talk to somebody. So I think there's still, what a lead is being defined differently. But how a lead is being valued, I think, is totally different too. In the past, a lead was valued as someone who wanted to purchase a home, so they're worth this much money in this period of time. Now there's a longer period of time, and they might want to talk to somebody now, but they may not be ready or willing to transact for 3 months or 6 months. So I think portals and customers of portals are wrestling with, what is the value of a lead, and how do we get into that? So I'll talk about that a little bit later today. The next metric to look at is new listings. So I think this is the best lead indicator of what's going to happen to a market and what might happen, again, looking at these curves in terms of a drop in transactions. It'll be really interesting to look at a drop in new listings, because that will occur several months before the transaction. So what's happening right now in terms of listing volumes? And again, I'm going to look in many international markets where I have data, because that'll give an idea of what might happen in many markets. So this is information, this is data from Seattle here in the United States. Seattle was one of the first areas hit by the pandemic and the associated lockdowns of that pandemic. So King County is the county of the city of Seattle and the surrounding region. And you see here number of new listings in March, year over year. So you see 2019 in light gray, and then you see blue. You'll notice they're down about 50%. So the lockdowns occurred kind of right here, right as this third curve was going up, lockdown, and things just kind of dropped off after that. So there's about a 50% reduction in new listing volumes in Seattle, one of the first markets hit in the US. One of the other first markets hit in the US is New York City. You'll probably read about it in the news. Here in the States, we hear about it all the time. It's kind of the epicenter for our outbreak. New listing volumes in New York. That's Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn. Again, this is from the start of the year. You see everything is fine, everything is normal compared to last year. But then middle of March, when things get serious and lockdowns happen, new listings just drop right off. They're down about 78%. That's a huge drop in new listings. And if you think about, a 78% drop in new listings now, what is the drop in transactions, real estate actually being transacted? What's that going to look like in 1, 2, 3 months? Like, this effect will only be felt in 2 to 3 months from now. So there's quite a lag between what's the new listings and the transaction volumes. So overall, looking at all this stuff, I'm seeing a 50 to 60% drop in new listing volumes. That's based on a couple of markets here in the US. That's based in the UK. The UK is actually down about closer to 70%, and Italy's down about 60%. Those are big drops, right? Those are absolutely big drops. So those are really big drops in those markets. And if you go back to, you remember this chart, right? This is, these countries are kind of here at the start of the curve, and they're experiencing big drops. And this drop in transaction volumes will come 1, 2, 3 months later on down. So that's why these are great leading indicators for what might happen. The other thing I want to say right now too is I notice a correlation in a drop in new listing volumes versus how severe the pandemic and the associated lockdowns are in each country. So Italy, the UK, and these markets in the US all have relatively strict lockdowns. Whether real estate is an essential service or not, or it can still be transacted, is kind of it's besides the point. They're relatively serious, strict lockdowns. You know, we're not allowed to do anything non-essential. However, in markets like Germany and the Netherlands, the lockdowns are not as severe. People can still go out and kind of engage in normal life, albeit with some changes. But you know, shops are still open in Amsterdam. Shops are not open here in the US, nor are they in Italy or the UK for the most part. New listing drops in those markets like the Netherlands and Germany and Sweden are very small, very, very small. So it's a bit obvious, but it is worth saying that, you know, the more severe the impact of the pandemic and the more severe and strict the lockdown is, the larger a drop you're going to see in new listing volumes. And then if, you know, again, this illustrates another drop in new listing volumes. This is the UK. This is new listings over time. And you see this humongous drop right here, this orange line, as the UK goes into lockdown. Everything's going along fine. Then boom, mid-March, things get serious. And then it just went on lockdown. New listing volumes down 70%. You know, compared to last year, the light blue line, that's a hugely dramatic drop, right? I mean, that's like their Christmas period. It's huge. So again, that gives us a hint of what this could look like. So that's what the drop looks like. How long is it going to last, and when will it recover? It'll be so fascinating to look at this graph at the end of the year and to see what that recovery looks like. Just to warn you, I mean, I don't think it's going to bounce right back up. I don't think it's going to be a little narrow V like some of these other ones, the bank holidays. It seems like it's going to take a little while to recover, and I'll show you why when we look ahead at some of these other charts. So, lastly, transactions. You know, what's the transaction count look like in some of these markets? What are we seeing there, and what can we tell? This is a great chart out of China, and this shows the impact on transaction volumes in China during the pandemic across 30 major cities. And it's showing it over the past 4 years, so you get a sense of the trend. You know, the first thing you'll notice is every year there's a dip here around Chinese New Year. So things just stop right then. You know, that's normal. What's abnormal is this year they also had an epidemic and associated lockdowns in the country. So you can see transaction volumes dropped, but then stayed to basically zero for 2 weeks. That's how long the bottom of their curve was. And then the other clue we get here is this recovery. So over the next 2 months, transaction volumes have picked up. Like they are going up. But I'd say they're still maybe only half or 40% of previous year's volumes, at least the highs, you know. So if the average is in here, yeah, maybe it's half of that, but it's taking a while. That's after months. So it's not an immediate boom, you know, bouncing right back up. It's taken quite a while. So that's China. What do the number of transactions look like in Dubai, which is also on a strict lockdown? You know, there's a graph. They're down about 60, 70%. So big drop in transactions. People just simply cannot transact real estate in the same way they could before this lockdown. In Italy, which is in lockdown, you see the number of properties sold in 2020 versus 2019, kind of going along fine in January and February, and then March, everything hits. Transaction volumes down about 70%. So there's a consistent number here, right? It's kind of that 70, 80, even higher in China. That's a big drop in transaction volumes. And here's some data from Zillow. Zillow did some research on how Hong Kong reacted to the SARS epidemic in 2003. It's a little hard to read this, but the long and short of it is when the epidemic hit Hong Kong, SARS in 2003, transaction volumes dropped 40 to 80% as people practiced social distancing measures. But they recovered, and it took them about 6 to 9 months to recover. That's this dark black line here. It took them quite a while to get up to the point where they were back to kind of normal, healthy values. So that's the summary, right? If I had to sum that up, I'd say, hey, most of these countries get affected the same way. They see a 70 to 90% drop in transaction volumes for a period of time. And then things recover. And that recovery is slow. It could take 6 to 9 months to recover to normal. I'm not sure if it's going to snap back to normal or if it's going to be a slow, gradual increase. The data out of China suggests that it'll be relatively slow and gradual. I'll be keeping an eye on Italy to see what happens there, and I'll report back to everybody here to tell you what's happening in other European countries. So you can kind of, for the countries that are a bit ahead on that curve, Italy, Spain, France, we can see what things look like in that recovery period and how long it takes and what it looks like. But there is a significant drop down in transactions. I think the other wild card here is economic considerations of just everybody. There's a lot of unemployment. People are losing their jobs. There's a lot of health and safety considerations. Is that going to impact prices or the housing market? And I think about that with these two questions that I'll show you. When people think about consumers still transacting real estate, they often ask this question: can people still buy homes? Right? Is there online services? Are they doing virtual tours or online notary, online closing, legal forms? Can you do everything virtually online? And is it still legal? Right? In some countries, they shut it down. Like the UK is shutting it down as much as they can. Other countries like the Netherlands and Germany, well, yeah, you can still do it. But I think this question, it is important, and it's talking about the logistics and how practical it is to buy a home. But I think there's another really, really important question that not a lot of people are asking, which is, will people buy homes? Even though they can, it doesn't mean they will, right? Are in the midst of a pandemic, is this the time that you want to move? Is this the time consumers want to look for and buy a new house? Or do they want to wait? Do you want to list your house now when the number of new listings is dropping 70%? Is that good? Is that bad? Or do you want to wait 3 months to see what happens? If you sold a home last year and you're sitting on a pile of cash, do you want to invest it in a home right now? Or do you want to wait 6 months and see what happens? So I think there's a lot of really big, important questions in the industry here. And this one, especially for consumers, from a psychological standpoint, is so important. So it's not just, can people buy homes, but will they buy homes? Will they do that right now? All right, so that's kind of an overview of the data, and I hope that's helpful. What I want to talk about now is some of the implications I'm seeing. How is this affecting the industry, affecting consumers, affecting agents? So I'll go through that stuff. The first group I want to talk about are portals. How is all this drop in traffic, the drop in leads? How is it affecting portals? How is it affecting portals like Otodom, other top portals in Europe, other big portals overseas? What are they doing? The first thing a lot of folks are doing is offering some discounts based on the competitive situation and what the value of a lead is. So there's a lot of discounts being offered here in the US or in the UK and other parts of continental Europe, where portals are kind of saying, hey, we're in this together and we're going to offer you a discount, or we're going to defer some of your payments to help you along here. They're also offering kind of product enhancements, so at the end of this, ImmoScout in Germany, is saying, hey, at the end of this, we're going to give you kind of some of our premium products for free. We want to help build everybody's business back up to the point it was before the pandemic hit. But it should be worth noted, companies like Rightmove in the UK, they're offering a huge significant discount, but that's a huge impact to their revenue. It's about a 28% impact to the revenue. So all the big portals are losing huge amounts of revenue from this. It's impacting everybody. I don't think anyone's going to go away or go out of business, these portals, but it's still a significant issue. Before I go on, the other thing that the big portals are doing, I'll just kind of go back here, is product improvements. So, right now in this world of social distancing, people want to do as much as they can online from at home. So a lot of portals are launching virtual tours or enabling people to do something online virtually. If you can't get into a home to film an actual tour, well, maybe we can just look at the pictures together and I'll guide you through it, online over a Zoom video conference. basically whatever whatever people can provide, that lets agents and consumers still interact with one another. So I'm seeing a lot of portals doing that. Funda in the Netherlands, Hemnet in Sweden have both rolled out features like that. Here in the US, that's been rolled out, and it's becoming very, very popular. Lots of agents, lots of brokers are asking for it or doing it. Consumers consumers want it. So 2, 3, 4 times the number of consumers are asking for this. I will say, I don't think a virtual tour is a replacement for visiting a home. I don't know that many people are going to buy a home without stepping foot inside of it. So a virtual tour is not a replacement for visiting a home, which may be something you cannot do in a certain market. It's not a replacement, but it just augments the process. It's part of the path of getting from A to B, like looking at a home to making an offer. It's just something else people can do now when they can't visit and while they're stuck in their homes. So it's a great thing. I think consumers are wanting to do it. I think the agents that succeed through this process will be ones that adapt new technology like virtual tours or like other online services to help their consumers out. Fundamentally, it's consumer demand, right? If consumers want something, typically the companies that give it to them or provide it to them or the agents or the brokers, they will succeed. And consumers are looking for this right now. So the companies that are able to do that, able to provide these services, are they going to be the ones that succeed? The other question, I don't know what the situation is in Poland, but here in the US, we have online notaries, for closing. When you actually transact, you need to sit down in front of a whole bunch of papers, fill them out, sign them. And in a lot of states, that has to be in person. But what's happening now is laws are being passed to enable that to occur online. So you might video with somebody, show a copy of your ID, and sign all the documents like that. That's another really important move in terms of getting transactions to occur online without seeing people face to face. So again, I think the companies, the agents, the brokers that are able to do that, are able to give consumers what they want to help them out, are going to be very, very well positioned going forward. I think the companies that survive and thrive in this new world are going to be the ones that are most agile and flexible and willing to adopt new technologies. And a lot of those new technologies are coming from portals because they're well placed to be able to do that as a platform. All home shoppers go to portals anyway. Why not give all those home shoppers the same platform to be able to do these online tools? So I think that's really good. It's giving consumers what they want. Portals are able to provide value, and agents can benefit from that. You don't have to make an investment. You don't have to invest $100,000 to buy all these cameras and get a software program. You can simply just use what the portals are making available. So it's kind of a good win-win. Another trend overseas is this concept of iBuyers. These are these new companies that went out and they offer to buy people's homes from them, and then they fix them up and they sell them. So if you're a homeowner, you can sell your home to an iBuyer as opposed to bringing it to market and having it wait and sit on the market. I just wanted to mention it briefly now because this is a new model. It's a disruptive model, and it's basically been put on hold. It's time out. All the big iBuyers in the US stopped buying houses. Zillow, Opendoor, OfferPad, Redfin, they've all stopped buying houses because it's not a good time to do that. The market is too uncertain. You don't know how to value a home. You don't want to buy a home right now. It's just, there's big question marks. So the reason I mention this is because a lot of new disruptive models are getting disrupted by this. iBuyers is one of them. There's other disruptive models. They might be well placed in this environment because they have a lot of online tools and services. So that might be good for consumers. But other disruptive models that are trying things wildly different, like the iBuyers, now's not a good time. It's very risky for them. So we're not sure how they're going to fare over the next couple months or over the next year, but it'll be something that I keep an eye on. Consumers are also changing their behavior. And I think there's going to be short-term and long-term consumer changes. So we've talked about some of the short-term consumer changes, which is wanting to do online showings, virtual tours, online closings, online inspections, anything like that. Those are all short-term because if you're stuck in your house, you don't want to go out. You definitely don't want to be doing that. You want to do some of this stuff. So short term, companies that can provide this to consumers are going to be well positioned. Long term, though, the question is how many of these new behaviors from consumers will stick, right? How many people will still want to do this if we can go back to normal? If I can go actually visit a home, do I care about virtual tours anymore? And nobody knows, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen. It's kind of like after 9/11 in the U.S., air travel was changed. It was much more strict to go through security. I had to do a lot of new different things. Now, 15, 20 years later, a lot of those security changes are gone, but some remain. I still have to put liquids in a little plastic bag when I travel here in the US. So I think it'll be the same, right? Where, in general, I think people will want to, it's real estate. It's not buying things online. It's real estate. I think in general, people will want to go back to how things used to be as much as possible. They want to meet people in person. They want to see the homes in person. They want to touch a pen and sign things. For the most part, people want to do that, but some things will stick around. Now is the time where people can experience much better products and services to help them. And so virtual tours, it's, some people will want it. So it's great to be able to offer it. I think doing online closings is a big advantage. Right now, if I wanted to buy the house across the street from me, I'd have to go to a conference room in Denver, 45 minutes away, sit down at a table with other people, sign 200 pages of documents. Like, no, thank you. I would much rather do it online, fill this stuff out online, make it easier. And a lot of those changes legally are coming now. The states and the country is making it easy for that to happen. So here we are. We have this new stuff. Why would we ever go back to the old way? But for you, I would pay close attention to consumer behavior and consumer changes. Listen to what your customers want. Listen to what the folks at Otodom tell you customers are looking for, because any company who can respond to those customer changes as they change over time is going to be well positioned to win. So summing up all of this, I call this, the research here, this real estate pandemic survival guide. And it's actually really, really simple. So there's two steps. The first step to survive through this in real estate as a real estate agent is to be around for the rebound. So you must survive. So there is a graph. It is going down, but it is going to come up. This is temporary, right? It is temporary. It will not last forever. You got to be around, right? You need cash. You need to extend your runway. You need to make sure that when the graph comes up over here, you're around. And when people are starting to think about buying and selling houses again, they call you. And the only way you can get business is if you're around. So you see some big companies laying people off, furloughing employees. You see big companies cutting expenses, cutting marketing, just trying to cut as many expenses as they can to conserve their cash so they have as long of a runway as possible to be around for the rebound. So you just got to survive. So that's step one. Then step two, there is no step two. Survival is everything. And I kind of mean that as a bit of a joke. I mean, I think there are some things people can do, but it really underlines the importance of step one, like the importance of survival. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of virtual tours or products or services or anything you have. If you're not around to help somebody when the market's back because you've run out of cash, you've run out of money, it doesn't matter. So survival truly is everything in this space. As I've said earlier, I think the companies that are best positioned to win are going to have strong balance sheets. So they're going to have plenty of cash, plenty of runway. So they will be around. They're also going to be the most agile and nimble and ready to invest. They might even be investing now, investing today. When we're deep in this curve, they're the companies that are going to be hiring people, investing in technology, investing in products. Because when we come out of the dip, they're going to just accelerate away. They want to pull away from the pack. It's like a bunch of race cars, in a race going around the track. And when they get up to a corner, everybody slows down. You hit the brakes a little bit, you grab the wheel, you focus, you might pass someone, but then you hit the accelerator and you just accelerate out of that curve. The companies and the agents, the people that are going to accelerate, are the ones who are going to be around, but they're also willing to invest now and react to the changing situation and just pull away. Another analogy I've heard is that it's halftime. You know, we're kind of pausing. The whole market is just pausing. It's like a sport game, basketball, soccer, whatever. You know, the whistle blows and it's halftime. Everybody's off the field, and everybody's kind of waiting. They're drinking, they're eating, they're talking about strategies. And then the whistle's going to blow again, and everybody's going to go back on. And, you know, it's about what you do now during halftime that really will impact what you're going to do when the whistle blows and when everybody's back on the field. So now is kind of the time to plan and regroup and get everything ready. The other version of this, though, that I do want to say, kind of a play on words here, is it's halftime. It's 50% time. Now, what I mean by that is kind of going back to this original graph, right? Which is this. What does this dip look like? At the end of the year in 2020, what are we talking about in total transaction volumes? It's halftime. I think it could be 50%. It all depends on the country and the lockdowns and the pandemic, but it would not surprise me. And if I were a business owner planning for 2020 in the US and many of these markets we've talked about, not Germany and the Netherlands yet, but for many of those markets, I would assume there's half as many transactions this year as there were last year. So it's halftime. There's half as many transactions. That's half as much revenue, half as much commission. That's tough, right? That's going to be tough. It's going to kind of trickle down to everyone in the industry. So many years ago, I was a CEO of a company. You know, I started my own tech company, had about 40, 50 people, and I was the CEO. And people would come to me and they'd say, you know, hey, we hope to launch this new feature next week. Or for sales, we hope to close these 3 new sales by the end of the month. And, you know, to everybody's consternation in my company, what I would always say was, well, hope is not a plan. You're telling me you're hoping for something, but that's not a plan. What is the plan? There's a lot of optimism in the industry and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear. My hope with this is that I'm giving you enough data on what's going on, looking at actual numbers to come up with a plan, to be able to say, okay, this is what's happening. This is what's coming. I can now react to that. I can react appropriately and make a plan for what's going to happen in this space. So there's a lot of stuff changing in the industry. We're at the early part of the curve in many countries and many places. Over the next several months, I'm going to keep watching this, and we're going to see what happens in the space. And I'll continue to give you the data you need, the data everybody needs around the world to be able to come up with a plan. So that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, please look for me online. If you have any questions, send me an email. Talk to the great folks at Otodom, anything like that. But until next time, take care. Thank you.